We're back investigating the death of superstar Michael Jackson. The doctor who was convicted of involuntary manslaughter in Jackson's death is here today. After serving 2 years in prison, Conrad Murray is speaking out and revealing who he says is really to blame. Thank you for being here, sir.
Welcome, Doctor.
So let's start at the beginning of the relationship. When you first met Michael, what was your impression with him? What was he like?
Well, he was a very polite, very soft-spoken gentleman. I was asked to see the children of a celebrity. They heard that I was the best doctor that they can offer. The superstar wanted me, and that's how it started.
In your book, you are very honest about the fact that you would go out in disguise. You'd hire exotic dancers. You'd party in Vegas.
Yes.
Did this seem like appropriate behavior for a doctor to have with a patient?
I was his doctor, but we also had a very strong social relationship where, as guys, we can do things outside of the patient-doctor relationship. Remember, doctor, I am a subspecialist. I am an internist. I'm a cardiologist. I am an interventional cardiologist by subspecialty, and I am also trained in nuclear medicine. Now, when I agreed to work for Michael, I took several steps down that ladder of specialization. So I was far more qualified in my level of skills and specialization than what I was hired to do for Michael.
Were you well paid?
With Michael, I took a reduction in salary. With Michael, everyone was concerned about $150,000 that Michael was supposed to pay me.
$150,000
per month, US. That was the income I agreed on. But for me, it was an overall reduction. Dr. Oz, I have a ton of patients. My practice billed roughly $350,000 a month. So I was doing Michael beyond a favor. I was actually partially supporting Michael financially before AAG came on board.
How so?
Michael was destitute. He was a nomad. He was moving from hotel to hotel with his children, from homes to homes. And they were tired of doing that. I paid for his medicines. I paid for things he asked me to purchase, including that of bottles of wines that he would want to have at his home when he was relaxing. I never paid rent for Michael, but when I realized how low he had become in life, I offered him residence at my home, should it come to that.
Let me turn to the medications that Michael was taking
Yes.
when you first met him. He had incredible knowledge of propofol, a drug that you only use in the hospital usually. It's pretty dangerous. Did that alarm you? Were there any red flags that went up when you met Michael that he had more knowledge of some of these drugs than he should?
Well, we have to put it in perspective. When I first met him in 2006, there was no knowledge of propofol. 2007, 2008. It was shortly after I agreed at the beginning of 2009 to go to England. Michael comes to Las Vegas. That's the very first time he had mentioned to me if I had propofol. And as I stated in my book, and more details, this is it. I could not give him propofol.
Dr. Murray, most doctors, I'll put myself in this category,
Sure.
would drop a patient if they insisted on taking a drug that I thought might be dangerous for them. I would feel used if I was put in that situation. Did you feel like that?
I met Michael Jackson when he asked, at that time when he asked for the propofol. It was something that he was using since the 1980s.
From the 1980s?
He said in the late 80s on his store, he would use propofol in Germany, and other places, and doctors traveled with him who gave him the medication. And I said, it's not good for you. I don't think you should use that. I did not agree with Michael that he should use propofol. Then when he brought out his own supply in his red and white sports bag, doctor, the bag could not even be zipped up. It was loaded with propofol, his own stash, in his home. I did not want Michael Jackson to be using such a substance, especially feeling that he was invincible and it had no danger as far as his expertise and experience with that drug.
Then why did you keep treating him? You're telling me that he was calling you to get the drugs, and yet he had the propofol in a bag filled so high he couldn't close it. He didn't need you to be his doctor. He was getting it by himself.
He was. Doctor, if you ask me, Dr. Murray, would you have done it differently? Had you had that opportunity? Now with the knowledge that I have? Absolutely. I would have run away from Michael Jackson had I known that Michael Jackson was an addict to another substance, Demerol. But he hid this knowledge from me. I was totally unaware of that. Michael Jackson was getting upwards of 975 milligrams of the dose, combined with midazolam, which is also known as VIDS. That's what he was accustomed to.
So he was getting 10 times the usual Demerol dose with a Valium-like substance.
Yes.
And he was still able to walk around.
The last 60 days of his life, how many times do you think he received Demerol in those enormous quantities? 51 times, the evidence of the trial will tell you, in the last 60 days of his life.
Dr. Murray, you were taking care of him. You're his primary caregiver. How is it possible you would not know that?
Well, Doctor, it's the same as you wouldn't. Do you think that every patient that comes to you give you the total truth?
No, but I'm not living with my patients. I'm not going to Las Vegas with my patients. I'm not hiring exotic dancers with my patients. I'm not spending all my time with an individual. I probably would have noticed something.
Michael Jackson hid from me that addiction. Was it my fault that he did that? Possibly could have been. Because I am totally averse to drug addiction.
And we're back with Dr. Conrad Murray. So when I graduated from medical school,
yes,
I recited the Hippocratic Oath. You probably did as well.
Sure.
The most compelling line is, do no harm.
Sure.
Do you feel like you fulfilled that oath with Michael Jackson?
I feel that I have fulfilled that oath with Michael Jackson. I felt if I had more information from Michael Jackson, I would have handled Michael differently.
Do you feel anything you did was unethical?
Dr. Oz, I met an abnormal situation. I could have run away. If with the knowledge that I have today, certainly I would do differently. I would, for Michael, for his own sake, would have told me the truth about himself.
So I want you to listen to a recording that you're aware of because you made it.
Sure.
This is the recording you made while he was sedated on propofol. Take a listen.
When people leave my show, I want to say, I've never seen nothing like this in my life. Go. I've never seen nothing like this. Go. It's amazing. He's the greatest entertainer in the world.
I asked you if you'd done anything unethical. I wouldn't record a patient of mine who is barely conscious. I wouldn't do it to a friend either. Why did you make that recording?
This recording was done inadvertently. I had learned from my daughter about how to record things on the iPhone. Michael also was a snorer, and he wanted to know how he snores when he went to sleep on propofol. I told Michael that maybe I could record this for you on camera or on phone. It remained so, and then they saw it on my phone. But I wasn't even aware that I had recorded it. It was not recorded with any intentions to cause him any harm or anything unethical.
All right, I want to go back to the day, the moment this happened. So this is his bedroom. Come stand if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So this is Michael Jackson's bed. So he's lying here.
Yes.
I gather you would sit in that chair normally or somewhere else in the room. So show me, if you can, where you were, how you came in, let's start with where you gave him the propofol. So Michael Jackson's lying in his bed.
Yes. When Michael Jackson, after having this unbelievable restless night, where I'm describing in the book, This Is It, as a hamster on a wheel, walking around all night, pushing his IV pole with plain, normal saline, a catheter on him to prevent him from wetting his bed because he had an incontinence issue. He was back and forth all night. Finally, when I relented, after he received lorazepam and midazolam.
Let's do this. We have a timeline. Let's put the timeline up.
Yeah.
This is what happened over that last evening. And this is all the drugs that, according to the police affidavit, were given. And you see this reader started at 1:30 in the morning, and you're giving Valium, which people can take, with a prescription orally.
Sure.
And then you give a bunch of injections of more Valium-like medications. And how long were you out of the room?
I was gone out of the room for a long time. Because when I left Michael Jackson, he was not on a propofol infusion, which is what the prosecutors contend. And there was no evidence to support that.
I have a different question. Why take a risk at all? Why step out of the room with a man who's gotten a fair amount of other medications throughout the night, has received the propofol, is not snoring the way he normally does? Why take the risk?
Well, I'll tell you this. If you add it up and you're a doctor, make it known to your audience that 4 milligrams of lorazepam and 4 milligrams of midazolam is not a lot of medicine for anyone to be sedated, unless you're a virgin to medication.
It was still a risk to leave the room. You thought he was safe.
Safe.
You step out of the room for an hour?
I left his bedside around 11:25.
And his position on the bed?
Well, normally when I left him, he was on the pillow. And when I came back, he was in a different position. He was no longer on the pillow. He had moved down, lower in the bed and closer to the edge. But he was there, but it wasn't the same person I saw.
So he's slumped over. Is he breathing?
No. I did the normal thing. As a cardiologist, I resuscitate patient. My first thing, Michael, are you okay? Michael. There was no response. Any pulse. He was lifeless. How long was Michael out? I could not say.
Was he cold?
No, he was not.
All right. So you're doing CPR on him on the bed.
And trying to protect his ivory from being dislodged.
So I want to go back before we get to the paramedics, because that's a big part of this story. You call the paramedics, if I'm correctly remembering, a baboon or baboons.
Yeah, I did. Because I was so frustrated. Paramedics did nothing more for Michael than I had done for him before they arrived.